issues. Let me start again just to make sure. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for me to welcome you all to this session on accelerating clean energy technology innovation. I am very much delighted to see the great interest in discussing this issue here today. I would like to thank the IEA for hosting this important event. Due to the delay of the COP meeting, it is even more crucial to facilitate dialogue in the international energy community. The IEA contributes also in other ways to the dialogue. Last week, the IEA published its special report on clean energy innovation. The report will be one of the topics for discussions in this panel. This breakout session is to focus on how we might raise funding and how we can work together internationally to accelerate progress, especially for 4 key areas identified by the IEA: CCUS, hydrogen, bioenergy, and electrification. But first, allow me to share 3 examples from Norway on how the government and the industry works together to promote clean energy technology and innovation, and in which we use key expertise and experience from our petroleum sector. I believe CCS could be one of the key technologies that will contribute to reducing emissions in the long run. Norway aims to establish a full-scale value chain for CCS in partnership with industry players. The Norwegian state's investment decision for this project is scheduled this year. CCS could also facilitate the commercialization of large-scale hydrogen production based on natural gas reforming, which can lead to both value creation and emission reductions. In the beginning of June, we presented the government's hydrogen strategy. An important goal for the government is to stimulate pilot and demonstration projects, making hydrogen solutions more commercially viable. And lastly, offshore wind is an area with great potential. The Norwegian Hywind Tampen is a pioneering project, the world's first and largest floating offshore wind farm, powering offshore oil and gas platforms and a testbed for technology. So to summarize, Norway remains committed to do our part in working towards a sustainable and reliable energy system in the long run, in close collaboration with our international friends and partners. And now I would like to invite my co-chair, His Excellency Energy Minister Juan Carlos Jobet of Chile, to take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I want to thank the agency for the opportunity to speak about a topic that I think it's vitally important for both our energy transition and for our country more generally. Chile has committed to phasing out all our coal-fired generation by 2040 and to achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. These ambitions will require the large-scale development in renewable energy in Chile, as well as a firm commitment to innovation that will drive technological development in sectors that are harder to abate. To achieve these energy and climate goals, Chile has been developing our huge renewable energy potential, a potential that is so large that it is roughly 70 times greater than our current capacity. We have made good progress. Today, renewable energy accounts for 44% of the electricity grid, but our aim is to reach 70% by 2030 and 95% by 2050. We will do this by continuing to attract and promote investment and innovation. To encourage foreign direct investment, Chile has developed one of the most stable regulatory regimes in the region and has designed an open, competitive electricity market. We also have free trade agreements with most of the world's economy. Given the scale of our renewable potential, we are currently developing an ambitious national strategy to establish our country as one of the leading producers and exporters of green hydrogen. High solar irradiance in the Atacama Desert to the north and the extraordinary wind resources in Patagonia to the south will result in very low cost of production. Indeed, last year, the International Energy Agency forecast that our hydrogen cost could fall below $1.6 per kilogram by 2030. That very low production cost will more than compensate the relative disadvantage we have given our distance from developed economies. Green hydrogen can play an essential role in our domestic efforts to decarbonize, accounting for more than 20% of our emissions reduction, but also will allow us to export our natural resources to the world, helping other countries to achieve their own carbon neutrality targets. Innovation will be the crucial catalyst transforming our vast renewable energy potential into an exportable resource and help create a global market for rapid decarbonization. As a government, we are setting the policy framework to allow private initiative to flourish. We have undertaken 2 regulatory studies that map the existing gaps between national and international hydrogen standards and create a roadmap for the development of a green hydrogen industry. We are assisting private companies to develop pilot projects, allowing them to move along the experience curve and lower costs. Finally, international collaboration remains key at this early stage of technological development and to quickly scale up industry. Chile is proud to be part of international forums such as this one that foster clean energy innovation. We will further our international engagement next year when we will host both the Mission Innovation and Clean Energy Ministerials here in Chile, where global leaders will meet to drive substantial advancements in energy innovation. As part of our efforts on green hydrogen, we're hosting an international green hydrogen summit on early November this year, on the 3rd and the 4th, bringing together high-level experts in the public, private, and research sectors from all over the world. We firmly believe that through international cooperation on clean energy innovation, we can build the knowledge and experience necessary to drive deep decarbonization in global energy systems and soon into all sectors of our economy. Thank you. Your Excellency, your microphone, I think it's off. At least I cannot hear you. For some reason, we can't hear you. May I suggest that maybe somebody from the agency takes on and help us moderate the panel? So, since I don't have the agenda in front of me, so may I suggest that somebody from the agency maybe takes on? So we don't get stuck here. Let me take on and improvise a little bit as co-chair, unless the agency wants to take on. But in front of me, I have an agenda that suggests that we're going to have interventions now in alphabetical order. In the list I have in front of me, I have Australia first. I don't know if the representative from Australia is there.
I am, and I've unmuted, okay. So if you can hear me, then we're good.
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly well. So let me
Excellent.
Give you so the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, I'm speaking to you today from Ngunnawal country here in Australia, and I pay my respects to the Ngunnawal elders and to all First Nations peoples around the world, and thank the IEA for convening the summit and for the reports that are supporting our conversation. I want to talk first about what Australia is doing, and then I want to touch on the 5 innovation principles from the IEA as they line up so well with our approach. So as we recover from the pandemic, Australia is backing new and emerging technologies that will support jobs, strengthen our economy, and reduce emissions. And we will build back better and stronger, and we will also deliver affordable and reliable energy. Australia has been among the global leaders on energy transition and innovation. You see it in our per capita investment in renewable energy on photovoltaics on people's roofs, and you see it in the rate of installation of renewable electricity capacity in the Australian grid. Our solar researchers are among the world's most innovative. We've broken world records in photovoltaic efficiency, which has driven down unit costs, and countries all around the world have benefited from that work. The Australian government has also invested nearly $10.4 billion in more than 670 energy projects, with a total value of $35 billion through the Clean Energy Finance Corporation and the Australian Renewable Energy Agency. And just as another example, because not all about renewables, our exports of liquid natural gas have helped other countries to transition away from more emission-intensive fuel sources. So technology and innovation have helped us address really complex problems associated with energy security, grid reliability, integration of renewables and distributed energy and transmission. These issues in Australia have been quite acute because of the rapid uptake of renewable energy in our electricity system. And technology and innovation will stay at the centre of Australia's recovery from COVID-19. We're developing a technology investment roadmap, which will set clear priorities, create a partnership with the private sector, and it will look at the complete deployment pathways for technologies, including supply chains, and it recognises the importance of collaborating internationally. The aim of all of this is to drive down the cost of low emissions technologies so that their deployment in Australia and globally is accelerated. So those are essentially the 5 principles from the IEA report. So we feel like we are fully aligned with the direction of that report. So like many others, we recognise the key role of hydrogen in the global energy transition. We've got a hydrogen strategy already, and we've put $500 million in investment for research, feasibility, pilot and demonstration projects. We're really keen to partner with other nations to share our knowledge and to improve technical expertise and strengthen global supply chains. We're also keen to work with the private sector, and I've put up our Climate Active brand here quite on purpose. This is a brand that companies can use to certify that their products or services are carbon neutral. And we're really looking and excited about the expansion and take-up of that in Australia. So I look forward to continuing to work together to make the technology that provides us all with safe, affordable, reliable and low emissions energy available to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deputy Secretary Evans, and thank you for stepping in so that we could continue the meeting in spite of my technical difficulties. I would now like to give the floor to Dr. Fatih Birol. The floor is yours. Okay, some more technical difficulties on Fatih Birol's side, so I would then like to pass the floor to Deputy Prime Minister Havlicek. The floor is yours.
Well, dear Executive Director, dear colleagues, I'd like to thank the IEA Secretariat for organizing this meeting despite the challenging conditions. Times like these require close coordination across different sectors in order to ensure that the recovery makes us more resilient to any future crisis, as well as enable smooth global transition to low carbon economy. The Czech Republic is fully committed to the European Union's ambition of reaching climate neutrality by mid-century. In order to do so, we have to keep our options open for all available and possible future technologies which have the potential to contribute to the decarbonization process. Today, I will devote my limited time to updating you on our most recent progress in some of our priorities. But first, allow me to appreciate the IEA and Special Dr. Birol for his leadership and for the excellent work Sue as the technology roadmap, striking of clean energy progress and technology collaboration programs, as well as the agency persisting commitment to technological neutrality. We are convinced that in the future, nuclear energy will continue to play a vital role within the global energy system. For a significant number of countries, it's the most suitable option for meeting their climate goals while maintaining stable and secure energy supply. Therefore, we are currently in the process of preparation of new nuclear build project, which we seek as a partial replacement for the gradual phase out of coal power plants that presently account for approximately 43% of our electricity generation. As for the innovative nuclear technologies, we are closely monitoring future deployment of small modular reactors, or research and development institutions are developing a molten salt reactor and are also participating in a gas-cooled high temperature fast reactor international research. We are planning development in the area of renewable and energy efficiency, of course. We have recently tabled a new national legislation introducing a competitive bidding by which we aim to support new renewable capacities in a cost-effective manner, and we have developed a long-term renovation strategy that will help us prioritize next steps in the public sector renovations. We expect an increased production of hydrogen in the near future, and it's desirable that we focus on hydrogen produced from all zero carbon sources, including from nuclear waste and renewables, or so-called blue hydrogen. And finally, Czech Republic is one of the largest lithium resources in Europe that can be extracted in a cost-efficient way. We are currently exploring feasibility of complementing it with factory producing batteries on a large scale, which could be used in the car manufacturing industry and help it to become more sustainable. Last but not least, we should seek an international dialogue through as today's meeting. I sincerely hope there will be more future opportunities to discuss best practices and our experience with policies and measures that can bring us closer to achieving our goals. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister Havlicek, for your interesting comments. And now I pass the floor to Minister Vaičiūnas of Lithuania. And just a reminder, please mind the time. If we go past our time, we will not get through our whole list, and that will be very unfortunate. So, but please, Minister Vaičiūnas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, dear co-chair, dear colleagues, participants and viewers of the summit. Firstly, let me express my delight to participate in the summit on behalf of Lithuania. Lithuania, together with IEA, is intensively working for Lithuania to become a full member of IEA, hopefully next year. So I'm really delighted to be here. Let me thank really for IEA Secretariat for really timely and dedicated summit. There are no doubts that we have to do our utmost to accelerate economy through energy transition. In Lithuania, hundreds of millions euros has been started to spend for energy transition, clean and innovative energy solutions, renewable energy development, and infrastructure for its integration already from March. But not only amounts of financing is important. Let me explain two main areas of investments. So the first financing pillar, visible and valuable investments to final energy consumers. As hundreds of thousands viewers as final consumers viewing this summit, this is also important to stress on this aspect. I have two examples, solar prosumers and renovation. This year we have increased financing 4 times than previously planned to support solar energy prosumers. Dedicated support schemes already are functioning to support private solar panels or virtual solar parks. These months, we have experienced and witnessed a record growth on individual solar prosumers. So it was no negative impact of COVID. The first virtual solar parks were launched. Yes, we have not only virtual summits like this as of today, but in Lithuania, we also have virtual solar parks, when the individual consumers are shareholders of the large solar parks and pays for electricity 3 times less than other consumers. Renovation of both private and public buildings was significantly intensified, including changing of the heating system by using solar panels and heat pumps in one system. And the second financing pillar, this is not so much visible, but very important and labor-intensive energy areas. So investments into the grids, ensuring that grid would be capable to meet the needs of individual prosumers, including smart sector integration solutions. Also, offshore energy infrastructure development is important, as this would also at least one-fourth of all the energy will be produced on the offshore grid. And as a consequence, industry, construction, and transport sectors will benefit from these investments. But first of all, of course, our society will benefit the most. So just to finalize, in Lithuania, we also have introduced energy innovation sandboxes. This will contribute to cost-effective solutions and incentivize private innovators to test their ideas. Here we are open to all of you. You can test your energy innovations on real conditions in Lithuania. So let's consider this as an open invitation to you. To conclude, urgent, concentrated, and targeted investment must be based on the most perspective long-term solutions. Thank you, and let's don't lose the momentum on this incentivizing and investing to the sustainable solution and sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Vaičiūnas. Now, before I pass the floor to State Secretary Barais of Germany, I would just like to apologize in advance that I will have to interrupt you if you go past your time, because if not, we will not get through our list and we will be automatically put back into the plenary session, and then some speakers will not have the opportunity. So just to let you know ahead of time. So State Secretary Barais, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Hello, everybody, dear colleagues. I'm also happy to be here. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. Already today, well-developed clean energy technologies, especially in renewable energy and energy efficiency, stand ready to take us a long way towards achieving our climate protection goals and our commitment to the Paris Agreement. The COVID-19 pandemic poses a serious challenge for our economy and society. However, we can emerge stronger and more resilient if we take the right measures now. The current global economic crisis means that while we must maintain our efforts to combat climate change, we need to focus more on aspects of affordability and security of supply. Germany is still pursuing a very ambitious energy transition. Just last week, Parliament here in Berlin passed legislation for Germany's coal phase-out by 2038 by the latest. This comes on top of nuclear phase-out next year. Replacing coal-fired generation with wind and solar will make a major contribution to Germany's ambitious energy transition targets. By 2030, 65% of electricity will be based on renewables without losing our industrial base. Together, coal and nuclear phase-out means that we lose 75% of our secure energy supply. At the same time, the new edition of the IEA's energy technology perspective correctly underlines to achieve our global climate protection aims, we need further technology development and innovation, which takes new solutions all the way to mass market application. Germany has a great expertise in solar and wind, and also in hydropower, in biomass, in the high efficient gas-fired and flexible power generation. Also carbon-free and carbon neutral hydrogen has a lot of potential in many areas. For example, gaseous or liquid energy carrier in heatings and especially in the industry, like steel and also chemistry. Germany has passed its national hydrogen strategy in early June, which is backed up by funding of 9 billion euros. Funding is planned to go to a broad range of measures, including working with our partners to create a sustainable domestic market for hydrogen. This includes, among other measures, support to the build-up of large-scale production facilities for green hydrogen, to the upgrading and new construction of pipeline infrastructure, and to programs to convert the tough nuts like steel and chemical to green hydrogen. Also, Germany is the world leading car and truck manufacturer. Also want to be pioneer in the new energy technologies like fuel cells and e-mobility. It is clear that much of hydrogen in Germany will be imported. Our national strategy will help investors at home and abroad to plan with as much certainty as possible about the framework conditions for hydrogen production and usage in Germany. To conclude, we want to supply a broad range of technologies so that our energy supply can be affordable, secure, and climate and environmental friendly. Thanks a lot. Stay healthy. All the best.
Thank you so much, State Secretary Bryce. I now pass the floor to Deputy Minister Tiilikainen from Finland. The floor is yours. Deputy Minister Tiilikainen, are you with us? Okay, we continue on the list. I would then like to pass the floor to Director General Castra of the Netherlands.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to see the result of IEA's growing global convening power reflected in the participation of this important event. The IEA's timely call for a sustainable post-COVID recovery and the organization's comprehensive damage assessment of the crisis on the energy sector supports us in the challenge to building back better post-COVID. From my part, I would like to raise the importance of accelerating and prioritizing innovations in solutions already in the pipeline, which entails facilitating projects in clean hydrogen, CCUS, offshore wind, as well as opportunities for green gas. And in this regard, it was mentioned by many before, the analysis of the guidance of the IEA on hydrogen development is very important. We must strive, and we do so in Europe, for joint cross-border projects which can help kickstart an integrated clean hydrogen market. And it is fundamental that we develop a shared approach in the development of a healthy international global hydrogen market as a prerequisite for achieving cost reduction in hydrogen. To achieve innovation, it's work on both national and international level. And we do this in the Netherlands in the form of a triple helix, comprising science, government, and business sectors alike, in identifying innovation gaps and tackling those gaps more quickly. We follow this approach through our mission-oriented knowledge and innovation agendas, and the climate and energy challenge is one of the most important challenges we tackle on a national level. And I'm happy to share this experience we have in the Netherlands with you and with other countries. This shared approach, this triple helix approach, provides the most predictable and focused framework for investors to invest in low carbon innovations, and those private investments along with public interventions like subsidies or regulations, are the most important to get things going in the energy transition. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Director General Castra. I would now like to pass the floor to CEO Facin of Hitachi ABB Power Grids. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and good to be here. I will focus my 2 minutes on the three elements of this panel session. The first, obviously, is at the center, the clean energy, technical innovation, and acceleration. Let me start with the acceleration. The three post-COVID priorities. Number one, putting people first, keeping in mind not only the short-term needs for health, safety, also jobs, but also the longer-term needs in terms of societal and environmental values. The second part is we have to take the opportunity to ensure and accelerate this sustainable energy transition, and certainly decarbonization being at the center of this transition. And third point, when it comes to acceleration, we really need to collaborate. We heard this many times, and we need to act with clear sense of purpose and urgency. The second part is on clean energy. We heard it very clear from IEA. There are three areas: renewables, energy efficiency, and electrification and grids. And let me give you a bit more aspects with regards to grids, which is a critical part of the power value chain that has not been receiving the attention that it requires. We need to build capacity, we need to build flexibility and resilience in order to be able to integrate increasing amount of intermittent renewables, but also managing distributed energy resources and also managing new supply and demand challenges. The third part, technical innovation. There is technology out there, solutions that are available. And there are three enablers that we want to put forward. Number one, we have to have focused investments. Number two, leveraging technologies, high voltage DC technology. We talked about that, we heard it about that, interconnections, power quality supply, grid edge technology, storage, microgrids, and certainly digitalization. The third one is collaboration. So to close all that, we need to be together collaborating, adapting and adopting policies and regulations that will enable a fast deployment of technology and facilitate new business models that are required to deliver this transition. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Facin. I would now like to pass the floor to Mr. Claudio Descalchi from ENI. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mrs. and Mr. Co-Chairman, and thank you for the invitation. So to define what are the technology priorities to build effectively a more resilient and cleaner energy sector and transition, first we should consider that we cannot identify a single solution. The generation of green electricity from renewables is certainly a priority, but this is not enough to guarantee energy security worldwide and displace all the current available energy sources. Therefore, to answer to the different needs for security of the energy system, first we need to complement green products with blue products, as blue electricity and blue hydrogen. In order to do this, we need to develop efficient CCS systems to decarbonize the industry sector, leveraging existing technologies like gas power plant and steam reformer and existing infrastructures like pipelines. This makes the transformation easier to achieve because it reduces the amount of capital need to transform our industry and consequently will be less impacting for the final customers. Secondly, we should implement innovative but already existing technologies using biomasses, waste materials, and biogas to produce bioproducts like biofuel, biochemicals, and biomethane. This technology can find important application to enhance sustainable mobility and serve an increasingly number and of retail market. In this direction, at Eni, we have been working for the last 6 years to our transformation platform, implementing and diversifying a range of innovative and proprietary technologies. For us, the COVID-19 crisis has even more accelerated these irreversible transformation paths. Just to give some examples to concrete projects, first, talking about bioproducts, we have already converted 2 of our traditional refineries into biorefineries for around 1 million tons per year. Secondly, for CCS, we have identified huge storage potential in Italy, in the Adriatic Sea, in the range of 300 and more than 500 million tons of CO2 at very low cost, because it benefits from depleted offshore field infrastructure still in operation, closeness to industrial facility from which we can capture the CO2. This is a major opportunity not only for Italy, but also for neighboring countries. Third point, our waste to product technologies that will enable Eni to valorize organic and inorganic waste. However, clean energy technologies require important investment. So it is essential to have a stable and harmonized regulation framework to keep all these processes competitive in Europe, guaranteeing a level playing field amongst the different countries and all over the world. The collaboration of government and the private sector is essential to provide rules and the appropriate perspective for this investment. These are, in summary, the main priorities to support clean energy technologies and accelerate energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Viscalzi. Now we try to go back to Finland and see if we have Deputy Minister Tiilikainen with us. If so, the floor is yours. Unfortunately, I don't think we have Finland still. We'll try again later. I will then like to pass the floor to CEO Stina of Renew Power.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me to speak at this event. We are a company that operates about 10,000 megawatts of renewable energy capacity in India. All of our operations are exclusively here, so I'll give you a point of view from India and perhaps more generally the emerging markets. I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to incentivize the adoption of early stage technologies through well-designed tenders and auctions. And I'm referring here to solutions around how to make renewable energy more firm so that it is accepted better into the grid, which could be solutions around batteries and storage, of course, and also hybrid solutions. We could also be looking at things around, especially in a country like India, for solar water pumps, and looking at heating solutions through renewable energy in the hard-to-abate sectors. In echoing a point that was made earlier, I think clearly renewable energy being intermittent ultimately has to be absorbed by the grid. And so grid management software and essentially ensuring that grid issues do not arise in the future, that is a very important area. So we have to really find ways of making the grid more resilient and more flexible to absorb more renewable energy. And I think that's one big area of work that we really need to focus on. The other thing is that as we get more and more capacity of renewable energy getting installed all across the world, we have to look at how we can actually generate more energy from all of these assets. We have to have a much higher focus on digital and artificial intelligence and machine learning to make sure that we're able to derive much better performance. And I can tell you from our experience of operating a number of assets across the country that poorly managed assets is very easy to have, and you have to really work very hard on making sure asset performance stays high. And that in that respect, digital and AI becomes a very, very important area that has to be looked at and almost has to develop in parallel to the development of renewable energy. In addition to that, I think it's very important for countries like India, which are large domestic markets, to also develop large domestic manufacturing industries, whether it's in solar PV or whether it's in batteries, because that's one area in which we can, or how we can develop large amounts of R&D in those sectors. And I think that is very important to look at future development in those sectors. The third thing I would say is that we need to really, as a country, create clusters for renewable energy R&D facilities. It could be around universities. It could be around encouraging renewable energy companies to invest in the R&D side, and therefore incentives and some kind of encouragement needs to be given for that to happen, I think, in a very significant manner. The fourth thing is that countries like India really need to look at funding specific pilots in areas like hydrogen and carbon capture. These are still new areas. A lot of countries, from the conversations that we've just heard, are devoting resources to invest in that area. And clearly, I think a country like India needs to also make sure that we are not left behind in basically investing in those areas. And so therefore, I think it's very important that we look at doing that in a very significant manner. And lastly, I would say that the government in India controls a number of public sector enterprises. It is very possible for the government to instruct those companies to invest much more on the R&D side, and in collaboration with private sector companies, really invest in some of the areas that I've talked about to grow the sector much more significantly and accelerate the energy transition quite significantly going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sina. Then we try again with Finland. Deputy Minister Tiilikainen, are you with us now? I think they were having some issues with the mute.
I think we can see him, but he's not unmuted. Oh, there he is.
Oh.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me now? Wonderful. I would like to thank the IEA for hosting this important summit. Finland welcomes the work of the IEA, including useful data and analysis tools such as the Special Report on Sustainable Recovery and the Special Report on Clean Energy Innovation are important for countries in designing ways towards recovery and climate neutrality. Dear friends, I would like to point out that Finland is deeply committed to its objective for climate neutrality already in 2035. This goal was included in our government program, and it has been well received and responded by the industry too. 13 industrial sectors have prepared their individual low-carbon roadmaps, which were published in June. The successful outcome was a result from wide cooperation coordinated by the government and with strong involvement of industrial associations and their member companies. I believe that the roadmaps can be very useful in pursuing sustainable growth, green recovery, and climate neutrality, for instance, to allocate green recovery funds in an optimal way. We are happy to share our experiences and the results of these roadmaps. Extensive private investments are essential on the road to technological progress and climate neutrality. The industries expect that governments create enabling framework for companies to invest in innovative solutions. In our country, companies are planning investments in a wide range of clean, low-carbon solutions. These will provide consumers energy in a cost-effective way while promoting competitiveness at the same time. Industrial sectors and individual companies play an active role in planning and investing in climate-neutral future. In Finland, the current share of the renewables in total final energy consumption is over 40%. Improving energy efficiency has been another long-time priority in our climate and energy actions. The future energy system, moving towards climate neutrality, will seek electrification and synergies by integrating electricity, gas, heating, cooling, and mobility systems and markets. By leveraging smart networks, we can place energy users and citizens at the center. To conclude, although we can do much more by utilizing existing solutions, we should also continue our strong investments in research and development of new clean technologies. However, we should not cling too tightly to any specific technology. On the contrary, all relevant low-carbon technologies should be promoted. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Deputy Minister. You came a little past your time, but you came very good when you finally managed to get on with the technical issues. I've had my own, so I feel with you. Okay, so now we pass the floor to CEO Pfeiffer of Institutional Investors Group on Climate Change. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to the IEA for convening today's summit. I'm going to speak from the perspective of institutional investors, and our members are actually increasingly focused on the role they themselves can play supporting the energy transition and net zero emissions across the real economy by 2050. And I would like to highlight 3 areas that are important to our members as we think about the clean energy transition and technology innovation. Firstly, we have been working with a large number of investors on how their portfolios can become Paris aligned, and investment in climate solutions is a big part of this, as is decarbonisation. One of the main requests from investors is for more clarity on the level of investment that will be needed, in which technologies, and the appropriate balance between public and private investments. So what we're looking for is detailed decarbonisation pathways for different sectors and regions, including a breakdown of investment trajectories to support net zero emissions by 2050. And that will help to guide investment decisions. And the IEA's ETP publications are very useful in that respect. Secondly, investors are, of course, also shareholders in companies, and they're asking companies to put in place net zero targets and business strategies. We co-founded an initiative called Climate Action 100+, which now includes 450 investors with $40 trillion in assets, where we're asking 160 of the largest greenhouse gas emitting companies to put in place net zero targets and business strategies. And companies are asked to set out how they will achieve those goals, including what role they expect different technologies to play in creating credible transition plans, and therefore what their R&D efforts are for relevant technologies. And we also think that collaboration across value chains is absolutely critical. So we're convening companies across different sectors with investors to develop joined up approaches to these technologies. And then finally, governments and public finance institutions are of course critical to providing investors with greater certainty about the role that these emerging technologies can play in decarbonisation pathways. So I think collaboration between investors, companies and other stakeholders is incredibly important so that we do achieve net zero emissions by 2050. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pfeiffer. I would now like to pass the floor to Vice President McDowell of the European Investment Bank.
Hi, can you hear me? Hi, well, the Minister, thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you to the IEA for hosting this event. European Investment Bank, as a bank of the European Union, is delighted to participate, mainly because we're putting climate and clean energy very much at the center of our own mission and strategy. In fact, last year, EIB became the first multilateral financial institution to announce that we will completely stop financing all unmitigated fossil fuel energy projects to prioritize our resources for clean energy. Clean tech innovation is a particular priority. Why is this? Because it's particularly difficult, clean tech innovation, to finance by the private sector. Let's remember, unlike many other forms of innovation, clean tech innovation requires large upfront capital investment. And the distance between innovation and commercialization tends to be much longer than it is for software, for ICT, and even compared to the life sciences. Let's also remember a lot of investors, private investors, have got burnt in the past, particularly in solar and CCS. So there is a risk aversion, private sector risk aversion around clean tech innovation that requires public intervention and public support. So how will we do this within the European Union? How will we support clean tech innovation? Firstly, with grant aid for small projects under the Innovation Fund. The EU has now set up the largest clean tech innovation fund in the world with what is likely to be a 10 billion fund over the next 7 years to support small projects, less than 7.5 million to support technology demonstration. For projects that make it through technology demonstration and need to move on to commercialization, we have the European Investment Bank that can offer a debt product of between 7.5 and 75 million in a high-risk debt project to bring them up to a commercialization stage. Just to illustrate that, the type of projects we're supporting with that instrument, floating wind for the first time, we're supporting the pioneers of Portugal and France in floating wind technologies. We're supporting, obviously, battery demonstration plants in Sweden, which is likely to become Europe's first battery gigafactory. We're supporting the decarbonization of steel production. And we're also obviously supporting novel technologies in wave and solar and other areas. What's next? Well, there's far more projects than there is resources. And under the EU's recovery plan, there is the potential to significantly increase the level of resources that we can deploy for clean tech innovation. So we hope that gets supported and agreed by EU policymakers in the coming weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. McDowell. I would now like to pass the floor to CEO Liebreich of Liebreich Associates. And just before I give the floor to you, just want to remind everyone that we now have very little time before we are leaving this session. So I please ask you to stay within your 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I will try to be succinct. This is a session on technology innovation. But I just want to remind everybody, we are in the depths of an extremely grave economic crisis, obviously also a health crisis. We're also at a time of unprecedented focus on the issues of inclusion and justice and equity. And I think we therefore have to respond by differentiating between the next, let's say, 5 years and what happens afterwards. So over the near term, we really need to focus on those technologies which we have and they work, and promoting them and accelerating them would get money into the pockets of people who really need it at this stage, as well as furthering the climate and clean transition agenda. So we're talking about things like energy efficiency, electric vehicle charging, solar, distributed, and so on. Now, to accelerate beyond that, we have to think about filling the hopper with new technologies that we can be rolling out at scale from, let's call it 5 and 10 years and beyond, because without them, we will not achieve the goals. We're talking about industrial processes, green aviation, hydrogen, and so on. And we really need to work well with the private sector and the public sector together in order to achieve the lab breakthroughs, the scale, and the finance that are required to do that. So we need to have clear signals from the policymakers. We need markets that reveal prices. We need barriers removing, but we also need the private sector really to be unleashed and allowed to develop not just technologies, but also the business models, crucially, the distribution that will get the next wave of wind and solar and electric vehicles out into the markets. We can do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Liebreich. I would now like to pass the floor to Ms. Sophie Merlot, the Director of the Energy at the Directorate General for Energy and Climate in France. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, dear ministers, distinguished colleagues. First of all, let me congratulate the agency for this excellent meeting and its reports, which are very useful. The crisis has not erased the environmental and climate crisis. It highlights the limits of our economic models, which does not take sufficient account of environmental, social, and health externalities, and the importance of reaching the objectives of the Paris Agreement. France is currently preparing a recovery plan to accelerate our transition to be more decarbonized and resilient for the future. And we are also discussing a recovery plan at European level. France is convinced that heavily investing in R&D and innovation is crucial to achieve the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions to which we are committed and increase employment throughout Europe. Since many years, the public investments dedicated to the new technologies for energy amount around 500 million euros, enabling the financing of many projects. Our nationwide program, so-called Investment for the Future, supported for the last decade more than 750 projects of innovation and demonstrators in the sectors of energy transition, transportation for the future, circular economy, eco-efficient buildings, industry and agriculture, for a total amount of aid of around 2.5 billion euros, leveraging a total budget around 7.5 billion. Now we want to accelerate what has been set up over the last decade. The French government is preparing the next generation of financing instruments dedicated to research and innovation. Key sectors for innovation will be in particular decarbonation of industry, hydrogen and clean fuels. For hydrogen in particular, our strategy is to finance demonstrators to prepare the ground for a full industrial value chain in France and in Europe, in particular by developing electrolyzers. We think that visibility and stability on the long term are fundamental, and that investing to accelerate innovation and develop industrial capacities for the energy and ecological transition will be a cornerstone of the upcoming support mechanisms. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Merlot. I would now like to pass the floor to our last speaker in this session, and that's Mr. Alvera from Snam. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Again, I would like to add my congratulations to this additional work done by IEA, which is, as always, really focusing on what is most important. I will try to recover some of the lost time. I've met with a number of you. You know, Snam is a very large gas transport company. We're converting our infrastructure to hydrogen. We've been the first to blend hydrogen and natural gas at a 10% level, delivering this blend to final industrial users. And we've done this because the cost of transporting hydrogen over long distances with the pipeline is 10 times less than moving around electrons. So yesterday we were all, many of us together at the launch of the European Hydrogen Alliance. We explicitly talked about many countries' needs to import hydrogen, and Europe itself will need to import hydrogen. It will import green hydrogen made from solar energy from North Africa, wind energy in the North Sea, and indeed, as Claudio Descalzi said, blue hydrogen from other parts of the world. We need to have a moonshot idea, which is to bring the cost of hydrogen to competitive levels with fossil fuels within the next 5 years. COP can play a big role in achieving this. We have a plan that's set out to do so. The IEA is playing a big part in convening meetings like this. We're happy to have further discussions and go into further detail as necessary, but we think this is a time to really create the value chain that develops at the same pace, and we don't have a lot of time. We can do this quite quickly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Alvera, and thank you to everyone for very interesting statements at this session. We will now soon go back to plenary, and I will have the opportunity to try to summarize some of our interesting discussions that we've had here today. So just again, thank you all so much for your contributions, and we'll see you all at plenary soon. Thank you.